Hi, everyone, and welcome to Cybersecurity Career Talks. I am your host, your coach, your teacher on this journey with you to help you find a role in cybersecurity. I have with me today Shabbir Bashir, and I met Shabbir when we both worked at Verizon, but he has worked with big four companies. Currently, he is the senior account manager for Polarity. And the reason to get Shabbir, and I've been after him for a long while, is that he has transitioned into different roles within cybersecurity, which is really interesting. Not only has he transitioned to a cybersecurity role, but he has had diverse roles within cybersecurity. And I want him to share his secrets with us today. Before we start, let me just read this disclaimer. And the views expressed in this presentation and during this session are the personal opinions of the participants and do not reflect the official policy or position of their respective employers. This discussion is a volunteer-led effort to contribute to the profession and to pay forward the many kindnesses and instances of support and guidance that the participants have received during the course of their career. So Shabbir, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you get your first job in cybersecurity?
Sure. First of all, thank you for the opportunity. I'm happy to be able to pay back and to the community as a whole. Secondly, my first job in cybersecurity was when I worked for a company back in Jacksonville, Florida, that did system administration as well as security testing and vulnerability management for small to medium-sized companies. That was my first job, and this was at least 20 years ago.
And how did you then transition onto other roles?
Sure. So I'm looking at my resume here because I've had quite a few different jobs. So I just want to make sure the sequence is right. So this was 2000 to 2002, and from that point on, what I did is, this was after the 9/11 times. Times were a little tough. There were some, economical challenges. What I did while I was working at that small company that was serving small, medium-sized clients is I continued to do my research on cybersecurity. I continued to read articles. I continued to pursue certifications, like the CEH that we were talking about earlier. And then I also did a lot of talks locally for the InfoGuard chapter in Jacksonville for the FBI and civil community. So they invited me to do a couple of talks on, using security tools. And then there was a person in the audience there that used to work for a small MSSP back in Jacksonville. At the time, they were small. Now they're doing very well. And they reached out to me and they said, "Hey, we have a long-term contract to do security services, miscellaneous kind of. They have outsourced their security, this client, to us. Would you be interested in joining us and being part of that team?" So the second job in cybersecurity was due to the talks that I did and due to the exposure that I kind of gained myself by doing these talks, right? So that's my second job. And at that point, I worked for a train company in Jacksonville called CSX, but that was the client. And the company that kind of put us there was as a consulting company. So while I was there, I did firewall monitoring, routers and switches, troubleshooting and monitoring, being on call, web proxy, blue code proxy, if anyone remembers, that's what we rolled out back in the day, and Cisco ASA, that's the Cisco proxy, I think. That's what we did. That's my second cybersecurity job. Should I continue, or do you want me to pause?
No, I just wanted to. So you transitioned from your more or less IT type of role into cybersecurity.
Mm-hmm.
And as you progressed in your career, you have changed various roles within cybersecurity, right?
Mm-hmm.
But my question is that what is the role of mentors? Did you seek out mentors, and can you explain what you mean by a mentor?
Yeah, that's a term that comes up quite a lot, right? In our field, I'm sure it comes up in other fields too. So, what is a mentor to me is someone who is a trusted advisor to you that you can go to, and doesn't have to be one person. It could be more than one person. It could vary from job, your wherever you are in your career. At that point, you can have this mentor or this person, and then over time, you can kind of have new mentors and kind of maintain those relationships. So that's the role of a mentor in a nutshell. But overall, a mentor is not someone that you go to and say, hey, I want to get into cybersecurity. Can you help me? That's in my opinion, that's not what you do. What I've done and have been successful is, and been lucky to have good mentors over the course of my career, is that I kind of research, or tell them or share with them what my interests are, and then kind of tell them this is what I want to do. This is what I think I want to do. And they kind of help me identify the pros and cons, right? This If you do this, this is great. Here are the pros for this kind of challenge, this kind of opportunity down the road. If and this could lead you to that kind of opportunity because they have more exposure than I do. And then these are the cons, right? If you do this, for example, then you may have limited exposure or you may have these kind of constraints in your career. So a mentor can kind of someone you can bounce ideas off of, as opposed to somebody who can tell you you should go do that. And of course, some of your mentors may have relationships and connections so they can make introductions for you if needed, but that's not the sole purpose of a mentor. In my opinion, a mentor is someone that you kind of maintain relationships with and make new ones, and also most importantly become a mentor yourself to people who might need help, right? Regardless of where you are in your career, there are people that might be starting up or are a little bit behind you on their cybersecurity career. So you can kind of offer these mentorship opportunities and kind of be a mentee as well as a mentor.
Sure, definitely. So contribute as well as receive from people. That
Mm-hmm.
is definitely something I encourage everybody on even today, because there is always somebody who knows a little bit less than you, or probably he is like further down, and then there is somebody who's ahead in your journey. So learn from them. Um, you now tell us a little bit about the various roles that you've transitioned within what I would say like the cyber realm.
Yeah, of course. So by nature, I'm very curious. By nature, I'm very always looking for what's next and what's interesting and what's exciting. So that allowed me to kind of expand my horizon a little bit more. So in cybersecurity, there's various fields, as we all know. There is, for example, vulnerability management. There's risk management. There's incident response. There's threat intelligence. There is operational security, like security operations centers, and audit can also be kind of a cybersecurity function in a fringe way. So all of these are interesting, and all of these are exciting in their own way. The way I got exposed to it is I have this tendency to kind of make new friends and make new relationships everywhere, genuine relationships wherever I go, whether it's at a professional level or a personal level. So when I would be working at a position, I would make sure that if I interacted with anyone else from another team that was doing something that I might be remotely interested, or even if not fully interested in, like just curious about, I would kind of take a point to ask them for, hey, what are you doing when you say vulnerability management? What does that mean? And then they kind of walk you through it. Most of the time, people are passionate about what they do for a living, and most of the time, they really like their jobs, and most of the time, they want to share. Right? They're like, okay, this is what I do on a day-to-day basis. This is what my day looks like. So the first step is to be curious and ask if you want to switch your career from various positions. Then ask questions, make friends, and then offer to kind of shadow them for half a day or for an hour. So can you kind of walk me through your tools or what your process is? In addition to that, don't be a burden to them. Do some more homework, right? Go to YouTube, go online, and see whatever you just learned about from this new friend, this new connection. Is this something that you want to pursue? Is this something that is, what are the career opportunities in that particular cybersecurity arena? So risk management is my first job at Verizon. After that's what I kind of took on. Even though before that in Jacksonville, I was doing a lot more hands-on firewall monitoring, troubleshooting, routers and switches, proxy stuff, right? So I kind of switched to risk management because it's not fully technical in terms of hands-on troubleshooting, but because I was advised again by a mentor, hey, technical expertise are great. You also need to understand business, language and business processes and why security is needed to continue the business. So that's why I took that job as a risk management analyst at Verizon as my first job that is not fully technical, because it allowed me to interface with the business owners of applications and systems, as well as the technical, stakeholders that were either doing the testing or bringing me the vulnerability assessment reports that I could decipher and share with the management and say, here are the technical risks and here's how they translate to the business risks. So that allowed them to make a business decision that would mitigate the risks of the technical nature that they came across. So that was a pivot. That was the first pivot in my career from pure technical to kind of risk management as opposed to technical. I'll pause here for a second.
Sure, thanks. So now, like, you are into this risk management position. What made you think that, okay, now I've learned whatever I could, and like, what made you think that you needed to do something which was like very different from what you did? Because normally, like, people try to progress in that, or maybe like go get into something very niche, right? So can you just like explain a little bit about what made you do that?
Sure. So I'm again looking at my resume or my LinkedIn profile, and the next job at Verizon was a senior manager of identity and access management program. And again, kind of a little bit of a different shift from risk management to identity management. And to be completely transparent, I had not fully engaged or executed on an identity management position before that. So at the time, our leadership reached out to me and said, hey, you're doing a pretty good job here with the risk management program. We want to expand our identity management program. We want to kind of take that and evolve it from where it is now. Would you be willing to kind of take the lead on that? And I said, yeah, I don't know much about it, but I will definitely, learn as much as I can, as fast as I can, and execute on the vision that you're setting for us here at the leadership level. So I got promoted to a senior manager role for an identity and access management organization. I was chartered to implement single sign-on, identity management, physical identity management, and privilege account management programs, and then also hire staff and kind of execute on that vision. So I did that for a few years and kind of took that, from where it was to a little bit farther. It's still being evolved, and identity management programs are never completed. So they're still being worked on as well. But there was that was a risk that I took without knowing anything about identity management, and it definitely served me well because I made, again, new connections, new mentors, learned some new life lessons, which I hadn't if I hadn't taken that chance and a quote unquote leap of faith, if you will.
Sure. I have at this point a question which said that how did you adjust to your new role in risk management?
Yeah. I had to change my mindset, right? So before working in risk management, I was purely technical, as I mentioned, firewalls, routers, switches, right? I did not expand my horizon at the time to kind of understand the business, right? Why am I making sure that this firewall continues to operate? Because at the time, trains at CSX were running, and we wanted to make sure that trains continue to run. That's the answer to that. But when I came to Verizon, I had a mentor. Back to the mentor question again, right? And in this case, the mentor was my boss, who I'm still friends with, by the way. And he kind of walked me through the process and said, look, it's good that you're technical, but think about this in the business aspect, right? What is the impact of this particular vulnerability if it was exposed and it was exploited to the business? Dollars and cents, time to execute business, and if what is the impact of the business. So I had to kind of have a mental pivot on how to think like how as if this was my business, right? And I had a technical background also. So that was just something that helped me, a mentor that kind of set me on that path to say start thinking like that.
Perfect. And now we've talked about like the mentors in your life and how you prepared for a new role. Can you tell us a little bit about when you keep on talking about like networking and how do you network? What is the importance? And everybody's busy today. So how do you like, is there some kind of like a set process or do you like, how do you do it?
Yeah, I believe in networking, like really do, right? And when I say I believe in it, I mean like just constantly network, right? Even when you are in a social setting and you're meeting with people, that you have not met before, share a little bit about yourself, what you do, and ask them what they do, right? Regardless, even if they're not in an information security position or even an IT position, it's good to have that network connection from with them and say, you are a physician, for example. Oh, that's great. Do you have, how do you manage the IT systems in your environment, or what, or maybe something that you can find common in between. So wherever you are, whenever you are, always think, how can I build and extend my professional and personal network? That's one way to do it. Another way to do it, obviously, is to kind of attend events like this, and connect to people on LinkedIn. Like some of you have reached out to me since Niloufer's announcement and reached out. Just one tip I would give to folks when they reach out over LinkedIn for a cold connection, like if you don't know me but you heard about me and you want to send me an invite, is just kind of put a little blurb in the LinkedIn note that says, "Hey, I would like to extend my LinkedIn network. I saw you or on the profile, or we are connected through Niloufer," or something like that. It kind of helps and adds and goes a long way. As far as professionally, even your vendors, like if you're in a situation in an organization and you have vendors that you deal with a lot, network with them, kind of interact with them, and make sure that they know what you do and ask them about their business. And this is kind of lead into how I kind of got my next job, or the next career move. That's why I'm kind of talking about vendors also. Treat them like partners and ask them what they do, and then that is another opportunity for your network, because these vendors go to all these other organizations and do sell their products and businesses. So you can expand your professional network and ask them, hey, can you introduce me to some people that are like-minded, or some people who are in this specific arena in cybersecurity, because I want to get into this, and use that networking function.
Sure. And be open, because somebody sending you a connection, don't say, oh, I use it only to connect with people I know in real life, because otherwise you already connected with them in real life. Why are you even bothered? Why are you even here today, right? So
Yeah,
uh,
that's a good point. And just to quickly add to that, you're right. If someone sends you a connection, do reach out and say, hey, if you have a few minutes, let's catch up on a Zoom. Nowadays, anybody can just spin up a Zoom and take 5 minutes just so we can kind of know a little bit more about each other. Because having like thousands of LinkedIn connections but no real connection doesn't really help anyone.
sure. And Rishabh has been asking this question. He is currently in the cyber risk area today, and he wants to move into threat intelligence and a SOC kind of role. So,
Hmm.
do you have any tips for him?
Yeah, I will try my best to help answer that. I've been involved in threat intelligence related cybersecurity arena for the last 3.5 years. So I think that the first thing I would consider do is kind of look at the various vendors that are out there that are selling threat intelligence feeds and platforms, right? Because on their own website, there is a lot more material that you can find about what threat intelligence is, what are the primary use cases, what is it that why organizations need threat intelligence, and then that's step number one. Look at the vendor sponsored videos. Step number two is to get a Twitter account, and there are very very good threat intelligence leaders that have very active Twitter accounts, and they share a lot of good information. I recommend you kind of follow them and ask them questions, DM them. Most of them are very helpful. they would do that for you. So start with that. Vendors, threat intelligence, Twitter accounts. Also, there's a lot of material on YouTube, right? I mean, a lot of times, including myself, we don't use YouTube fully for, professional purposes, but there's a lot of good information, a lot of free webinars. Hey, my own company, shameless plug here, we do a Tech Tuesday every 2 weeks. It's free. Just join in and kind of see how this works, right?
Sure. And one thing I want is that you have your Groupon uh, meetup. So I think, that is also something that probably people can join because it's free and you get like really interesting people to talk to. So
Yeah, I just started Meetup about 3 4 months ago, right when COVID began. So all my meetups have been virtual, unfortunately, but that allows other people from different parts of the world to kind of join the virtual meetup. I don't record them, unfortunately, like Niloufer does, but I do plan to have some more. So look it up. It's called New Jersey Threat Intelligence and Security Operations Meetup.
that is very focused. So that will help the Rishabh who's like interested in
Mm-hmm.
maybe transitioning into that kind of a role. Um, I am getting like questions from people about how to let's just get started. So if suppose they are in like maybe like early career, so what are like 3 tips that you would give them? And it's like
Yeah,
these are like people who are like trying to get their first role in cybersecurity.
yeah. It's a really, really, really interesting field. It's growing tremendously. So first of all, I'm happy that you're considering that, switch or that career role. Um, as a beginner, you would have to invest a lot of your personal time in the beginning to get a good understanding of the terminologies like threat intelligence, threat actors, vulnerability management, all these lingos that are out there. But trust me, all this information is out there, either on YouTube or on forums or PDF. So you just have to go look for it, right? So, first thing, get yourself familiarized with the various terminologies that relate to cybersecurity in all the different arenas. Second thing, understand the different arenas. Like I mentioned earlier, risk management, vulnerability management, threat intelligence, incident response, firewalls. There's so many different fields in cybersecurity that one may appeal to you more than the other. So figure out which one it is that you want to lean towards. If you just say, I want to get into cybersecurity, that's quite a big, wide statement. Third, again, once you find that niche area that you want to get into, find someone through first or second connection that is already in that arena. Do some homework, do some research on that specific, and then reach out to them and say, I have learned about these things. This is what I want to do next. Would you be willing to spend like 5 10 minutes with me and kind of I can bounce some ideas off of you? So those are the 3 things that I could think of off the top of my head.
Thank you. And just so to let like people know, I receive like probably 80, 90 LinkedIn messages, right, during a day. And I'm sure like same thing with Shabbir. If you want like some kind of information, put it all there, be very extremely specific.
Mm-hmm.
And because it does not help, like if I have to go back and forth, I just lose track of what's going on. So don't like send a message saying, hey, can you help me? Because it's not specific. Another thing, um, and Shabir, probably you've received these too. I get like a lot of people who are like product people, but then hey, I want to know about this and what tools do you use in your environment and stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
with saying like, oh yeah, I'm starting in my career, but and I can see that from a mile away. So please don't even try that. Shabir, can you talk a little bit about what's the best way to reach out to you so that it helps people who are trying to get in, and then it becomes like good for you also because you get like very focused questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the first thing to do is kind of, do some homework and reach out to or look up areas or specific interests that you are interested in. I would be more than happy to kind of share my, time with you and kind of give you some one-on-ones because that's the way I would give back because somebody did that for me back in the day and still does it, right? I still have mentors that I talk to. But but I don't just go up to the people who I seek advice from and say, hey, what should I do? Right? I gotta go and kind of share with them what I've been thinking about, what I have learned, what I've researched, and where I would like to go, and then what are their thoughts, right? So that kind of have allows you to have a more healthy conversation as opposed to just a generic blank statement of what should I do, because then that means that you're not investing your time in your career fully, and you're asking others for help, so the others might not be fully willing to help you, given that you're yourself not investing the time.
Sure. Thank you so much. Um, I think, do you have any last words, or do you have anything to like action that everybody who's here today listening to us should take to get further into a cybersecurity career, or something that will really help them?
Yeah, I didn't think about this beforehand, so let me think for a second.
Okay, sure. That's fine. There is a question about bug bounty. We have done multiple videos on bug bounty programs, and we had even invited somebody from HackerOne to come and talk. So just check out the channel. There are like a bunch of videos on bug bounty, how to become a hacker, and this is like for the questions that are coming in. Uh,
Okay.
Go ahead, Ed, if you're ready. Let
Yeah,
us.
yeah. Just the first thing that comes to mind, and it may not be for everybody. This advice, right? This may be for some people. Just don't be afraid to take that leap, right? If you feel that in your gut that you want to do something, and you feel that this is something that I really, really want to do, there will be risks, right? There's no risk-free decision. So if you choose to take on a career that you really want to pursue, and you really want like a new position or a new environment, take the leap. You will not regret not taking the leap, but you will regret not, well, I'm definitely jumbling this up. You will regret not taking that leap in the future if you don't take that leap now. So don't be afraid. Take a chance. The worst thing could happen. What is the worst thing that can happen is you may not be successful. It's okay, because you will learn something, on even when you're not successful, on how not to do those things. So the next time you take that leap, you will be more successful because you would know how not to do it and how to do it. And you learn every experience that you have in life, every career opportunity, every job, every relationship, every interaction, every networking opportunity, you learn something from it. So just remember, if it's not successful, this whatever that you're about to do, okay, but what did I learn from this, so that I don't repeat that mistake again?
Sure. Um, I have a question which says that what certifications do you recommend for continuing education in cybersecurity, or possible trends that you're seeing?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when I started with Microsoft Certified Systems Engineer certification. I'm probably dating myself. This is the MCSE back in the day. MCP started with MCP, and then you became an MCSE. So those are the non-IT certifications. But then my first cybersecurity certification, I believe, was a SANS GSEC, GSEC, and then second one was SANS GCIA, Incident Analyst. From that point on, I took the CEH, the Certified Ethical Hacker certification. And then when I got into the business role, I started kind of pivoting into more, general certifications like CISSP, which is very, very wide, and you know, covers a lot of different topics. So I'll pause and just say that if you're starting out in your career, even CISSP requires you to have multiple years of experience before you get the certification, but it doesn't stop you from picking up a CISSP book and learning about the different domains of cybersecurity. And even taking the test. You can take the test, and then when you get a job and you get 3 years of experience, you can go back and get that certificate. So start with a CISSP. Highly recommended for someone who's starting out.
Sure. And we even have a CISSP study group, so
Okay.
which has got like around 200 members. There are tons of people when we started off
Mm-hmm.
who've completed the certification this year.
Mm-hmm.
So that's helpful. There are a few questions coming in, if you don't mind staying a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
What are few things you will avoid while sharing risk impacts to a C-level executive?
Why would I avoid anything? I wouldn't avoid anything. What I would do is just paint the right picture for them, right? I would not do doom and gloom, the sky's falling down, this is the end of the world kind of deal. Right? I will say, these are the technical risks, and this is how it translates to the business. This is how I would say, for example, if there's a vulnerability identified in a platform that is interfacing, and it's a very critical vulnerability that allows an attacker to take on that platform and in full control of the data and the system. And but the problem is that in order to patch that vulnerability, that application has to be taken down for a period of time. But that application generates a lot of money for the business. So that is just a hypothetical scenario, right? So how would you explain that or provide? So the risk decision always has to be the business decision, right? They have to take the business has to decide, we are willing to take this risk and continue the operations as is, because taking down the application and patching it for a downtime period of 3 hours will cost us X amount of money. But if we have a vulnerability exploited, then it might cost us this amount of money. This is a very general, high-level statement, and I'm just coming up off the top of my head. So you have to explain to the business, I understand what you're saying. Just know that if someone exploits this vulnerability and they get access to the platform, and then there's a reputation risk that could potentially happen that could outweigh the financial risk that would come from taking down the application. So I think I'm getting into the weeds a little bit. What I would try to avoid is be purely technical. Don't be purely technical to the business stakeholder. Explain to them put yourself in their shoes. If I take down this platform or if I do this action, it's going to cost the business that much. So explain to them why the technical risk might outweigh the business risk, if you can explain it in a business term.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense. We have somebody else, and the question is that they moved from IT management to security recently, and how do they get like focused? You've said that CISSP is a good thing to start, but like she says that she's studying, like she wants to learn about AWS this week and then moves on to Azure and something. So like what advice do you have for somebody what is the first thing that they need to do today?
If I got the question right, I think it's more like they're a little bit like me. They want to learn a little bit about everything, and everything is exciting, which is awesome. It's okay to be kind of a little bit of on a wide horizon and learn about different things and be excited. But if you have a goal in mind that says, I want to take my CISSP and I want to pass it, try to stick to that goal. And then once you pass the CISSP, then you can move on to the next goal. But if you want to take a break from that goal, because if you take a study break and you want to take like a couple of days off, by all means, go out and do research on other cool things that you want to do next. I think that's the gist of the question that I got.
Another thing that I've seen and a lot of people have asked me for is that implementation, right? Execution is the most important, because you may make a great plan. You've got like this I'm going to do and that I'm going to do, but executing it is a very difficult thing. And I'm getting like a lot of requests from people saying, oh, let's maybe they are interested in like increasing their profile within cybersecurity, and they want to be looked upon as an expert, but they cannot like put 2 blog posts together in a month. So execution, whatever you're doing, if you're studying, then that consistency is key, I think. What do you think about that, Shabbir?
Yeah, you definitely have to put where your where your mouth is, right? Because talking about getting into this and doing all that stuff, and it's talk is cheap, right? I'll just turn that around back to you, Niloufer. I mean, you've been doing this pro bono, giving back to the community, career things, and it's help you. You're not making any money out of this, so this is very, very helpful. But you continue to do it, so and it kind of helps you also. So back to the person who asked the question. Just like anything in life, I think you just have to, kind of buckle up and do it, because sometimes in doing things like writing up a blog post, you might learn something that you may not have learned before. So you might think, hey, I know everything about identity and access management. Let me write a blog post. And you come across a segment of the blog post. And you're like, oh, let me go do some research on that. So you might learn something. So it's very beneficial for you also to kind of share this knowledge and execute on it, because you might learn something along the way as you're sharing it.
Sure. Another thing is that process, right? What is your workflow? Because even if suppose you're studying, what are you going to do? Right. So there are like a lot of things like today, obviously, like my question is with Shabbir, and we want to make the best use of his time. But the idea is to, like he said, right, stay focused on what you're doing today. Anything else, any new shiny object that comes up, just say, no, not now, until I complete this, whatever it is that I've focused
I don't think
on.
I can comment on that because I'm very guilty of doing that myself. So, but yes, to get a good point. Try to kind of focus on one thing at a time, and especially when it comes to certification or learning new things. And it's okay to kind of wander off a little bit, but try to come back to it.
Sure. There is another question about like security analyst role, and what should they specialize in, or if you can.
Yeah, so security analyst is again quite a wide term, right? You could be a security analyst and be vulnerability management or threat intelligence or whatever. Um, I think that I'll just take one for example. If you want to be an analyst that kind of looks at the current um, events in the technology world that are happening, whether it's in Bitcoin or whether it is in the latest um, SSL vulnerability that comes out or the latest threat campaign that is being executed against like by a nation state or something. Just be aware, like so find a good few handful of good websites, good Twitter accounts, and kind of keep checking them, keep kind of reading them on the side of your screen to be aware of what's happening, because then you could be better prepared when you're having a conversation with maybe an executive in your organization in randomly, because did you hear about this latest vulnerability that came out? Yeah, I did, and here's what I found out about it. So kind of keep your mind open. Just don't be focused on your day-to-day 9 to 5. Look outside your focus area also, and look at other things that might be happening in the world in the cybersecurity field that you might not be aware of. So that I always have a Twitter tab open. I always have a Google News open. I always have various other tabs open that I kind of scroll through the day, and it keeps me updated on what's happening.
Sure. Thank you so much. I will bring you on another date. Or do you have a few minutes for a quick question?
Oh, sure.
What about GRC? Because there is somebody who's like interested in talking, like maybe transitioning into a role in governance, risk, and compliance. Now, I know they are like different things, but if you can just like provide a few thoughts
Yeah.
on the GRC field.
I'll be the first to admit that the risk management role that I did at Verizon was kind of closest when it comes to that, and internal audit too. By the way, I did some internal audit work too at Verizon. Um, I would say um, there are various frameworks for GRC like COBIT and things like that that provide a lot of information that you may benefit from just by reading through them, right? Just because if you're starting into the GRC world, um, read up those programs, those frameworks, and they might not be super exciting to read, but it will enhance your vision of what companies have. There are a couple of good YouTube personalities, or maybe LinkedIn. I don't recall. They have very good blog posts that I kind of use when I was in my risk management and internal audit. I'll be sure to share them on my LinkedIn.
Sure. Thank you so much for joining us today. And on a Saturday, and that too in the summer, time is precious, but thank you for giving back.
Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for all the great questions. I hope to talk to each one of you.
Okay, so now